Okay, that's a great question, isn't it? Do I have any idea what the solution to the whole thing is? Wow. I was kind of hoping nobody would ask that because, I'm a former journalist. I'm not an economist or a financial analyst. I approached this as a journalist digging into it. I guess I kind of side with Robert Reich, and I think we need some basic structural changes in our society. So I don't know, does that make me sound like I'm way far out on the left somewhere or something? But I really think that I think we need some changes that are going to get at those core trends that we're seeing, or I don't think some of these sort of surface things I talked about are going to change. Do you have some ideas?
Oh, I think it's very interesting that you... Oh, we have microphones. That's very cool. I think it's interesting that you brought Robert Reich because he's, for anyone who has Netflix, he has a very interesting documentary right about this stuff. But I agree with you. I think there are multiple solutions. I also think that I will react to something that you just said. You just said that maybe your opinions are skewed to the left. I think more and more those sort of opinions that seemed to be to the left is going to be more center actually, because I don't know. I have a feeling that more and more middle class people have sort of figured out that a solution doesn't necessarily mean that I'm more left. It's beginning to be more centrist as more people lose their middle class status.
I think you have a very good point, and I really do think this is going to become sort of, nonpartisan. It's something we're all going to have to be working on together. So, yes, I hope that's true.
And just to wrap up, I will say that I think the outside of politics, I think education. I mean, I really think we need to get back to investing in education. I think we don't do enough of it in this country, but that's I think a nonpartisan solution.
I think that's right, and there's been a good bit of writing done about that, about the importance, if you are going to get ahead, the importance of having a college degree. So there's been a good bit of work done on that and definitely showing some correlations. Of course, coming from higher ed, I'd love to hear that. Yes, let's put more money into higher ed. But yeah, I agree. I think a lot's going to come in. It's going to have to do with education and being educated to go out into maybe segments of society where you really can sort of fill a need.
I'm curious as to what people's perceptions, if you've run across this at all, since we're talking about education, what people's perceptions are about the cost of education as it relates to all this, because everybody feels like we need to have an education, but more and more it's becoming more and more expensive. Like, I think I read somewhere it's like 300 times more expensive than to go to college than like 50 years ago. So.
Right. That's a really good question. And Pew, if you're interested in all the numbers on that, not all, but a lot of numbers on that, go into the Pew Research Center site because they've done some work on that. And if I'm remembering correctly, some of my students worked on that data set after did some looking at it. People who go through and get a college education do feel that it's worth it, even though they are in a lot of cases carrying heavier college debt. But that's one thing that's factoring into this whole scenario. A lot of people today, have gone through and maintained the lifestyle by carrying more debt. And part of that is college debt that they're paying off, in some cases, years later. I come from a very, very conservative state, Utah, where there's concern about every penny that's spent. So I can say from my state, there's a lot of concern about the cost of higher ed. The administration at Utah State's worked very hard to try to keep tuition costs down. You can't do it completely, can't do it as much as people would like, but there is a lot of concern about that. But I think what Pew found was that you go through, get the college education, and people do feel that it's worth it in the end. I'm not sure I answered your question, so I kind of talked around it. I hope I didn't.
Hi, I'm Sierra. Thank you so much. This is great. My question may be a little bit similar to piggyback off of that. So you showed a lot of statistics about the things that people would cut down on, but did you see any statistics or any information about actually, no matter the situation they're in, what they would still spend on? And I'm thinking education might be one, but are there other things? Was that one of them?
I have to say, I'm sorry, I didn't happen to run across those stats, and I think that's phenomenal. If I had run across them, I would have brought them to you. Every once in a while, as I went through doing the research here, there were little things that would kind of, tug at me. And I would say to myself, okay, so that dog sitting in that picture, is that something people wouldn't give up? you would always take care of your pet. You would give up other things before you would do that. I found myself wondering, I don't know. College education, do you say, yes, I'm still going to get that college education, I know how important it is, but are you going to spread it out, take a longer time? We see statistics about birth rates going down during recession time. People will postpone having children. But what wouldn't we give up? I didn't happen to run across the numbers. I'll keep looking. Fascinating.
Yes, I'm Sebastian. Hi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Information was great. I kind of have a question about that too, but related to age correlation, because you haven't really talked about that, and I know
Right.
that that also coincides with like the American dream. Kind of what age we think we can see ourselves like achieving the American dream. So I wanted to know if you had any insights on that.
Okay, I don't, but the numbers are out there. Because Pew, lots of times, and a lot of the databases I looked at, for the sake of time, I kept it pretty straightforward and
Right.
didn't look at but they often will parse it out by age and by race. So go into the Pew data sets and take a look. The reports are wonderful. Yeah, they have done all kinds of things, and this is where the economists get into their definitions of the middle class, and they're slogging it out with each other over where are people going up or down, you know. So they'll look at each generation and say, what are these people thinking? What are these people thinking? So I think the numbers are out there, but I didn't bring them with me today.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott. Thank you.
Hi, Scott.
I was wondering, with the middle class shrinking, where typically this is beginning to happen or is happening, and what are the factors that are contributing to it?
Okay, the factors are all the things we talked about earlier. It's, you know, all kinds of stuff coming together. So it's not like it's just one or two factors. It's all kinds of things going on in our society coming together. It's happening all over, but there are geographic disparities. And again, that's about as much as I can tell you. It's happening more in some places than others, but I didn't really take a look into specifically where. Yeah, but we do see it's uneven, but basically happening all over the place, just more someplace than others. You guys are asking great questions.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Greg.
Greg.
Again, great speech. I'm just wanting to know your opinion. What do you think is the difference between middle, lower class, and the poor?
What do I think is the difference?
Yeah, just because we talked about middle, and you know, as if things are going to plan out this way, you're only going to have two classes, where the people who have money and the people who don't.
Right.
And I find my friends, you know, they're not middle class, but it's a really weird, like, do they label themselves as poor? Do we label, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just want your opinion on that.
I think that when it comes right down to it, and I think you get into the whole perception thing again, because the economists will argue for the rest of all eternity about where we draw the boundaries. And at some point, it's pretty arbitrary. I mean, so you're $1 over what we would define as poor. You know, what's that going to feel like? Not much different, really. So I think it all comes down to those perceptions, and I think you kind of touched on that. And I think there's, you know, in some ways, there's not that much difference between if you're talking lower class, lower middle class, in terms of spending power. I mean, a little bit more spending power, maybe you can afford to have that dog and keep that dog as opposed to not. Maybe you cut down on the cell phone plan as opposed to giving up the cell phone, that kind of thing. No matter who you're talking about, they're making choices. They're making, in some cases, tough choices. So, you know, when it comes right down to it, we talk about the shrinking middle class, never going to disappear entirely. There's always going to be sort of this continuum. Yeah. A lot of it's so individual, too. What's important to you? What's important to me? Where I would put my money, you'd say, that's stupid. And where you put your money, I'd say, no, I wouldn't spend my money that way. So it's partly, it comes down to where you're willing to spend, what's important to you, and ultimately how you see yourself. Most people, I think, don't label themselves lower class. They might say lower middle. They might say I've migrated down, but they're not going to say lower class.
How much of this trend do you attribute to the shift in our economy and going from a manufacturing economy to a more service-based economy? And as that starts to come back and more companies are making the shift toward bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., do you think some of this effect will start to be offset by that change?
I do. Based on, again, what I see from the financial analysts, yes, I do, because over and over and over, two things that kept coming up as far as factors contributing to this. Technological advance, which means replacing people with technology and globalization. So that we're outsourcing jobs, or so we're bringing in, goods from all over the world. So I think as we move manufacturing, if we do move manufacturing back into this country, and I think about something like Walmart's I Am Factory campaign, I thought, man, I saw that. All right, little story here. Anybody from Walmart here? Okay, well, let me tell you. I've been boycotting Walmart for years because I was not happy with what I heard about the labor practices and didn't really research it. So, probably don't know what I'm talking about. But when I saw that I Am Factory ad, it really hit here. I have a brother-in-law who was laid off from his job, in construction as we went through the recession. So this really hit home for my family. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, if that's right, if Walmart's bringing jobs back into this country and really going to do that, I will become your best customer. So yes, I think everything I read leads me to believe that that's one of the big things we'd have to be changing, I think, to start things going up. That's my guess.
Hi, I'm Terry.
Hi.
I'm curious because you gave a lot of percentages, like
Yeah.
based on what the medium income is and all that. Does that take into account like cost of living? Like someone
Yes.
that makes 40-something thousand here would be considered someone of higher class, like in Alabama, compared to like here, where that makes you poor.
Yeah, it's I know, that's right. That's absolutely right. The figures are adjusted for inflation, but not for the rest, and that's a very good point. So you could have a much higher, and same in Utah, our cost of living is so much lower. Yeah. So my income in Logan would make me poor here. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, and that's one of those things where that gets into the whole, how do you define it? And do you need to define it by geographic area and all of that stuff? It's a big fat black hole.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
You said people like to be associated with the middle class, but why do luxury brands still work then?
Why do the what?
Luxury brands?
Oh, don't you like walking around with that incredible handbag or sporting
Right, but it
those-
makes you look like you've got more money than maybe you do.
Oh, well, I think that, yeah, and I think that, well, I think it kind of cuts both ways in a way, doesn't it? It's like we don't really, from what I read, the people who are affluent don't want to not be affluent. They want the advantages of being affluent, but they don't want other people envying them for that. So they talk about it, they're going to downplay it. That doesn't mean they're not still going to have the nice car, have the nice clothes or whatever. But when they talk about themselves, it's going to be, well, they're going to downplay it a little, upper middle class maybe, as opposed to upper class. I think that's a really good question. Then you still have the people in the middle class who in some cases are going after the luxury items. I don't think we're always consistent in our thinking.
Hi, I'm Ishmael. We talked about education and how more people are going to go, like, that should be a priority in America. But the more people that go to college, the more competition there is out there. And basically, those blue-collar jobs, their money doesn't go as far because the college-educated are much more, it's bulging on one side.
What some of the economists would say is that it's not all going to be people going to the four-year schools. It's going to be people going to two-year schools. It's going to be people going to trade schools. So advanced, education beyond high school is going to be important, but it's not going to be everybody going out and getting a four-year college degree that it looks exactly the same.
But don't you think that's the aspiration, is to be a white-collar, make enough money? That's the now American dream. And if you're not achieving that, then basically that's why our middle class is going down.
So is there a question in there? Because I'm thinking,
It's
yeah.
just-
I
it's
think-
an
yeah.
opinion.
Well, I'm thinking one response is the American dream is becoming more and more just being secure. It's not the white-collar job necessarily anymore. It's, I just want to be secure, whatever that means to me. So.
All right, lots of great questions.
I wish I really was an economist and had the answers, but I'm not sure the economists have the answers either.
Hi, my name's Whit.
Hi.
What are your thoughts, or what did you come across about immigration specifically as a source of cheap labor that is maybe taking away these jobs that were, reserved for middle class in the past?
Yeah, I didn't do any looking at that at all. I really didn't. I kind of kept a really narrow focus here and didn't take a look at immigration. But the economists will say that's part of what's going on here, and that's one of those longer-term trends that's making a difference in whether we can come back from something like the Great Recession. And ultimately, yeah, that's going to feed into some of those. That's going to make a difference in some of those proportions we were seeing in some of those lower categories, lower middle, and so on.
Hi, I'm Genevieve.
Hi.
So I was wondering how you think young people are going to be able to move into the upper class with such massive student debt. Is it going to be possible at all, or anything like that?
I think well, here you go. So here I am as an academic who has devoted a lot of years to working with young people and hoping I'm training them to go out and get the kind of job they want and so on. Yeah, I think so, but I don't think you're going to walk right into it. It's the same old thing it's always been. You don't start at the top. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. And I do think, I still think based on the numbers I've seen that it happens. I don't think anything I saw from the economists would say it's not happening to anybody. It is happening. It's just more competitive out there. You've got to be smart about what you get your education in. You've got to work hard, be willing to put some time into it, chip away at that debt. Isn't that just what you want to hear? I wish I could say, yeah, I have $1 billion. I'll wipe out all your student debt. Wouldn't that be great?
Hi, I'm May.
Hi.
Before you said the American dream was mentioning security right now. How can Americans gain security or believe in being secure while they blame, the big business and the government?
It's not that they think they're secure, it's that they want to be secure. They want big business to respond. They want government to respond. They want, the banks and the financial institutions to not be going through bailouts. It's not that we don't feel secure, but we'd like to. That's what we're saying today we value. As opposed to, and that's not the only thing we value, but we're saying there are increasing numbers of them are saying, proportions of them are saying they value that over the idea that I just want to make more and more money and be seen as affluent or something. Did that help?
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, thank you so much. That was terrific.
Thank you for
We
the
really
amazing
appreciate it.
questions. Thank you.